because the alien comes from, like an alien, it's called, they come from within your body. So the more close and the more familiar things are, the more horrific it is. Like if you think on Frankenstein, I mean, no one considered Frankenstein to be terrifying anymore, but at the time when it was, and it was really, if you read the book, the Mary Shelley's book, which is way better than any of the movies, the true horror is two things. One is the level of insanity of Dr. Frankenstein trying to beat death. But at the end of the day, he made the monster after recognizable parts. But it became something else different. So there's something about that. So I'm interested in the problem of monstrosity familiar, not familiar because I want you guys to use pieces of Barcelona, like you did with Peter and this thing. But I'm interested in the familiar within the genre of digital architecture. Like in 25 years, there's a certain sense, whether we like it to talk about it or not, there's a sense of style. There's a certain formalism that come out of it. From all of us who were involved, each of us will have a certain kind of signature moves and so on that all of you, in one way or not, know, more or less. So I'm interested in the monstrosity about the genre. Is okay, after the last 20 years of techniques, can we produce monstrosity and re-stitch, reattach techniques and methodologies that come from that? That's one thing. The second one has to do with the problem of the form and the body. And one of the aspects I've been interested in exploration of techniques is, I think there also has been a re-elaboration of the conventions of architecture. So plans and sections and drawing has become really relevant again after many years of renderings and maths and so on. And I think that's an interesting thing. But what I found a little bit disappointing about this is the notion that after all this innovation and so on, when we start to explore the problem of section, of plans, and space, and so on, we go back to the original notion of just cutting something. Instead to think about different mechanisms, how to think about this problem. So this is scene, which is from an awful movie called The Cell, but the sequence is quite fantastic, and of course is inspired in Damien Hirst's work. But what makes it very different is, and I'm interested in this problem because the third element I want to throw in this with you guys has to do with animation and cinematic effects as a vehicle for the production of architecture, in this case, Stitching in the City. When you look at this in the movie, and you see the horse happening, and you cut it, and you move it around, this is there to produce a visual effect, a sensational effect, a narrative of a film. So acquired three-dimensionality, even though it's sectional, it takes a different dimension, right? So she walks between the things and so on. Now, when you look at the Damien Hirst piece, it's a completely different thing, even though the technique is the same. In Damien Hirst, it's a political commentary, it's an artistic commentary, but it's different because it's there, you can see it, and in a strange way, it's way less disturbing than the movie. Even though you see it in person, there is an object quality that comes out of it, the proximity. There's a familiarity that comes to it that is different than the movie. So I'm interested in that problem as an aesthetic problem for you guys to work on it. But in terms of the techniques, what I think we have is an interesting idea. If we want to mirror, if we want to merge conventions of architecture with innovative one. I've been looking a lot into butchery techniques, and unfortunately, the Argentinian way of butchery, which I think is way superior to the British way of butchery, but we are not good at PR. So the British have all these manuals about how to cut the meat and so on. So unfortunately, I had to use the British version for the purpose of academic research versus the Argentinian way, which is more ear to ear, butcher to butcher, and so on. But what interests me about this problem, and this is a fantastic series, I recommend this to download all these videos, is a whole series of classes about how to cut meat. It is fantastic. With master butcher, Big Bad Hubert, and if you can trust a German to kill beef, what the war has become. But in any case, there are some of these beautiful diagrams of where are the different parts. But what interests me about this is the problem of three-dimensionality and the problem of the tissue and so on. What I'm trying to say is you guys already have a body of work that you guys produce. So the question is, can we start to cut and butcher parts of the thing that you already did to produce a new genetic code that instead to do a junk of a city like you guys did, will produce a series of bridges that it has a neuron scale, but also it's an object thing. So what I want you guys to do is to don't start from scratch, but take what you already did, and take it like it was an animal and start to figure out how you can do three-dimensional CAD, following the formal properties that you already established in each of your projects. Because if not, I think it doesn't make sense. If you start again from zero, what's the point? So, and the other reason why I thought the Frankenstein monstrosity work is because I think the whole experiment that you guys have done in the IAAC is a little bit like Frankenstein. You have all these parts. Willie, Mike, Peter, me. It's kind of a Frankenstein of all different ideas that you guys need to figure out how to put it together. But I honestly believe that most of you are going to fail miserably. It's going to be a disaster. But I think we're going to get 2 or 3 projects that are going to be masterpieces. I mean, this kind of thing, there's nothing in between. And it should be like that. This is fantastic. This is like 12 hours of this. And I totally recommend it. Now, as I was mentioning, the problem that we want to do, for the lack of a better word, I use the word bridge. But honestly, what I'm interested in is the problem of stitching. I mean, we have the river, the Source River, and you guys have been working on that. And we already mentioned that we're going to do 10 to 12 bridges. I don't know how many things we're going to be. But one thing I would like to do is each of you will do a different one. So the idea is at the end we can have a collective one, and we have 12 stitching of the rivers. And I would like, I don't know if you guys know the area better, to make it very compressed. So you can have a bridge like every 100 meters or something like that, almost like a ridiculous thing. I don't know, to produce more like a Venice effect. So it's not really about the idea of bridge as infrastructure, but a bridge as a way to reorganize the tissue of the city. So almost like the city start to move across the river. That's what I'm saying, need to be fairly, I don't know what would be the rhythm, that you will know better. But I think it needs to be fairly dense. If not, it becomes again about the object. And to me the idea is each of you is working on an object in piece of the city, but at the same time you guys are building my theory of the city, which is you accumulate a lot of different things, and the incompetence produces something more interesting. So I've been looking a lot on, I was thinking what kind of examples I can give you for you to think about it. And many of the things have to do what I would call the autonomy of form. So to understand, yeah, a bridge is an object that connects two pieces of the city, connects the issue, but at the same time again their own entity. So what I'm talking about is to think beyond the idea of a bridge. So I'm not talking about a bridge in the Descartes way, like a straight line. I'm talking about, that's what I'm saying, it's more like a connecting tissue. It's more like a manipulation of it. So it could be thicker, it could have more than one direction, it could be occupied, it could be landscape, it's open. So this is the work of Fabio Marcaccio. So I start to look on different kinds of work that had to do with this notion of bridging and connecting a tissue, but it's not like linear this. This is like molecular behavior in certain, actually this is artificial skin. This is the molecular level artificial skin that they do when you get burned. So basically these are the micro bridges. When you get burned, they need to put the skin and connect. That's how it looks. These are cellular cancer cells. This one I don't know what is here. But there are many ways about how we can start to think about connecting and tissues and zippers and teeth, and there are many ways about how we think about the problem. I mean, what it means to connect different parts. If you think the right side of the brain, the left side of the brain, actually there's not really any physical bridge between them, where there are like electrical connections at the molecular level, but also this idea of hyperconnectivity as transformation and mutation of the body. So I mean, there are different ways how to start to think about this problem. So it's not about to think that notion as a problem of linearity, but it's much more about the notion of stitching and the notion of protection, the notion of mutation of the city, of almost these bridges or connectors almost as symptoms of something went wrong in that part. And of course, I thought that being in Barcelona and so on, I always go back to Enrique to understand. That's always what fascinates me about, and these have nothing to do directly with the problem, but the notion of monstrosity and the notion of the Frankenstein. I think Enrique was a pretty good one. I think Enrique was the last one, let's say, if we look at this, Enrique was doing these guys. You know, it was the whole idea of Frankenstein. You put different parts together, it's kind of opinion, but you can read the part. The latest Frankenstein, which was Robert De Niro, is less than that. And if you think in the contemporary version of Frankenstein, it would be the movie Gattaca. You guys saw the movie Gattaca? So the contemporary version of Frankenstein is not any longer somebody who loses a form, it's something that it was genetically modified. So I just want to make sure that you don't get fascinated. So I would say the fracture and so on is great, but it belongs to a particular period of time. And there is a certain tradition that I would argue that Barcelona is very clear about Yuri coming to monstrosity. I can make the case how Gaudí was completely into the problem of monstrosity and how he used a lot of shed in between to hide the scars. So if you look at Gaudí, he really has a lot of multiple language collapses, but he always finds certain mechanisms that make them look coherent. So you guys have the tradition, but also there is a lot of art pieces of architecture of Gaudí. You can argue that they were to understand the wall-like bridges, the wall-like connectors. So there's something about that interests me in the tradition of the place, but also the notion of the object and how you learn from the things and how they're all hyper-ornamental, over-the-top, insane work of people like Pujol. So in a strange way, a lot of the excessive quality and interesting seems incredibly familiar in Barcelona. And I would argue that, with the exception of Mirages, the last 30 years of Barcelona, they completely betrayed their legacy, going into this kind of neo-modernist conservatism, mumbo-jumbo stupid thing. So I think to provoke, because I mean, I'm absolutely interested in the same thing that Will is talking about. I'm really obsessed with the notion of radical reality. I want to make sure that, as strange that this may look for you guys, or that the thing's a provocation, to me, the real challenge is at the end of the day to have a series of models and drawings and render that have a tangible, provocative quality to discuss with the city, to discuss with the people. So, but my point is, many of the things I'm talking about, they already were in Barcelona. It's not that they didn't exist, that level of aggressive formalism and so on. So can we take that and they do it to the city scale? Can we take that and make a series of tissues? Can we make that and make a series of stitching? Can we incorporate the notion of vegetation and landscape and stupidity or sustainability in an interesting way and use that as a series of mechanisms that start to introduce the problem of monstrosity also at that level? I really don't know exactly the area that we're working on, but it's somewhere along the line. But more towards the sea or more towards my point was, like, there's one of these, but let's say you take from here to here, and we have 12 of them, I think it will completely change and transform the tissue that way. But if you look at it, you probably have much better chances to have it than, or to do something in the bridges than you will have it on the other side of the bridge. I don't know. But anyway, I was looking at all these options about bridging and what that means and connecting and information. This, believe it or not, is not Photoshop. This is a Siamese rhinoceros. And apparently they can never it's not Photoshop, it doesn't exist. And I don't know, I mean, I guess the guy's always in the same place, but they cannot. But there are all these things that one of my students collected about. These two are Photoshop. These two is real. This one is real. So there's he's an artist who has, I don't know, a system, whatever, they have this problem, they have a second Siamese hand, so it's not just a full Siamese body. He has an extra hand inside the hand, and the brother or sister, I don't remember well, they made a whole series of art based on that idea, that you can have an extra part of something. So that's what I'm saying. It's not about a single bridge. It's about, I mean, connect, there are many ways how to connect. You can connect in an indirect way. You can connect nothing to nothing, and the connector became the thing, like these guys. And you can, of course, we all know the conventional bridges of people like Norman Foster and so on, but there are a bunch of others which are way more interesting. So this is a more conventional idea of a bridge, point to point, but you can have many points. Those are like something like 64 bridges collapsing into one, which this is one of them. This is when you have 60. This is when you're inside. This is not really a bridge. This is a piece of infrastructure. I was trying to connect highways with train station, but at the same time, the principle is the same. It's about connectivity. It's how you deal with that problem. So, at the end of the day, the thing is, and I thought that, which I personally think is the best Frankenstein movie, with the young Frankenstein, is one of the best movies ever. So I hope that at the end of the semester, each of you look like this guy. I have that thing, but I honestly think the problem is, can we invent a genre? Can we invent something that is not city, is not urban, is not object, is not form? It's all of them and none of them. So can we create a genre? Can we create a whole series of species? That's what I say. Don't think in bridge as a type. Don't think of a park. Don't think in the Ponte Vecchio. Think how we can collapse into that and produce a new species, like that mutant rhinoceros that probably doesn't move anywhere, or those kind of things about the extra hand. So to me, that's a challenge that I want to pose to you guys, is how we can do that, and also to produce a tricky thing, which is the idea that you individually are doing one person, but also collectively you're changing a whole chunk of a city, which is, to me, is also another way to start to think about it. Let's say master planning doesn't work anymore, and the idea of one architect doing a whole piece of project, and if you ever go to the Getty Center before you go Richard Mille, you will see how bad it is to give someone to do 12 buildings all at once. But if there is a new model to produce something that you can produce a certain family of similarities, but then enough differentiation that produce a whole territory. Whatever you can think about Eric Vaughan's work, I mean, he's one of my dearest friends, and I really don't like his work, but I find it really interesting. But when you look to those 3 or 4 blocks in Culver City, he said, can we take that to a different level, that you have certain similarities, but each of them is slightly different. So that's a little bit the provocation that we're trying to figure it out, which is to create a genre that operates at the city scale using formal techniques or artistic techniques. I have no idea how this is going to work out, and I think that's how it should be. I don't think there's point to experiment things that we know the outcome. It's much more interesting to don't know the outcome. Questions? That clear? Bullshit. It's okay. You're not a student here. You don't get to ask. Now you can ask.
It's very
Thank you for joining us. Why are you late?
Because here I don't have a car.
That's such a stupid excuse. Make a good one.
No, really.
Invent a good excuse. You were dancing until 6 a.m. with George Clooney or something like that. Okay, so what was your question?
The examples that you showed, they were some sort of disease or bad mutation or cancer or something.
Yeah.
But we know them as a bad species, but we want to use them in architecture somehow. But how we could control them transform them into a good thing? Because
why is it transformed into a good thing?
The guy with
the cancer is very happy with himself. There's a great book that I put here for you guys to read. The last one, George Canguilhem, The Normal and the Pathological. It's a fantastic book because basically it says that from the body point of view, each illness is bad. From the illness point of view, each body is bad. So there's a whole balance about the idea how that works. So it's not really so much how to make it good or not, it's to understand the principle of the agents of transformation. Like for example, the most advanced mechanism, and honestly, I don't have any intention for you guys to research on cancer or anything like that. It's not about that. It's about getting to think outside the box and what it means to bridge and connect at the cellular level and so on. Mutations, what is the different type? A hand like this is okay, but if you have other hands inside, you can recognize the type, but it's a whole different thing, and it may be very disturbing because we can recognize it. So I just asking you for you guys to work with techniques of destabilization. I don't want you guys to create cancers in the city or anything like that.
No, not the cancer. I'm talking about the things, the examples that you said. They are just some adding parts, but not necessarily any adding thing to something.
Yeah.
Is going to help us to, make it work better. But so we have to see that what is the function, not the function, but how we could enhance the performance.
Why?
Of something. Because otherwise we are just killing ourselves. It's like, okay, so I don't need this